That 1.5% might be the best return on investment in entertainment history, noted one financial analyst who has studied celebrity business ventures. Jackson essentially converted a potential legal battle into an ownership stake in what became one of the most successful branded product lines ever created. The foresight that took was remarkable. For Jordan, the relationship with Jackson opened doors to international markets where basketball had little presence, but Jackson's cultural influence was enormous. Jackson's global tours often coincided with targeted international marketing pushes for Jordan products in the same regions, a synergy that helped establish the Jordan brand's global footprint years before the NBA itself became truly international. Michael Jordan came to realize that the lawsuit, as irritating as it initially seemed, forced a relationship that helped him tremendously, said a former Bulls executive. Jackson understood global celebrity and how to navigate it in a way that Jordan was just learning. That knowledge transfer was worth more than any settlement could quantify. The partnership was particularly valuable in Japan, where Jackson's popularity had reached almost religious proportions. During Jackson's 1987 Bad Tour stops in Tokyo, limited edition Air Jordans were released exclusively in Japanese stores, creating a collector's market that helped establish the Jordan brand as a premium product in Asia. Similar coordinated efforts followed in European markets where Jackson's tours created media frenzies. "We called it the Michael squared effect," said the former Nike marketing executive. When both Michaels were associated with something, even indirectly, the impact was exponentially greater than either one alone. It was marketing synergy that money literally couldn't buy. The harmony between the two wasn't always perfect. Tensions occasionally flared, particularly when Jordan's fame began to approach and even exceed Jackson's in certain markets by the early 1990s. There were disagreements about international marketing strategies and reported friction when Jackson wanted to leverage his connection to Jordan for access to other NBA stars for various projects. One notable dispute occurred in 1992 when Jackson attempted to recruit Jordan for his Jam music video. While Jordan ultimately appeared in the video, the negotiations reportedly became contentious, with Jordan's camp pushing for greater creative control than Jackson was comfortable ceding. The resolution involved a compromise where the video was partially filmed at the Bulls' practice facility, giving Jordan home court advantage while allowing Jackson to maintain overall artistic direction. "They weren't best friends," clarified one agent familiar with both men. "They were business allies who shared a name, enormous fame, and increasingly overlapping commercial interests. Sometimes that created friction, but both were smart enough to recognize the value in maintaining the relationship." Their public and private relationship evolved further during the 1990s, as both men faced unprecedented challenges. Jackson's legal troubles and allegations regarding his personal life created a complex dynamic for Jordan, who was carefully cultivating a squeaky clean image for his growing brand empire. Meanwhile, Jordan's gambling issues and his first retirement from basketball in 1993 to pursue baseball briefly complicated the marketing synergy the two had established. According to insiders, the two developed a protocol for managing these challenges. Their teams would consult before any major public appearance together, and each would give the other advance warning about potentially controversial news or decisions that might affect their association. This professional courtesy allowed both to maintain appropriate distance when necessary without damaging the underlying business relationship. "It was like a diplomatic relationship between two powerful nations," explained one lawyer who worked on these arrangements. "There were official channels, protocols, and understood boundaries. When issues arose, they were handled through proper channels rather than direct confrontation." Yet through these turbulent periods, the core agreement remained intact, with both sides honoring their commitments and maintaining the public facade of casual friendship. Their few public appearances together during this period were carefully managed, with both teams approving the circumstances and messaging in advance. Perhaps the most significant long-term impact of their settlement and subsequent relationship was how it revolutionized the approach to personal branding for athletes, entertainers, and celebrities of all types. What they created was essentially the blueprint for modern celebrity brand management, explained Harvard Business School professor Anita Elbers, who has studied the business of entertainment and sports. Before the Jordan-Jackson agreement, there was very little sophistication in how personal names were protected and monetized as commercial properties. Their dispute and subsequent partnership helped create the framework that every major celebrity now follows. Prior to their conflict, the idea that a public figure needed to actively protect and manage their personal name as a commercial property was relatively undeveloped in legal and business circles. Most celebrities were content with straightforward endorsement deals, viewing their name primarily as a personal identifier rather than a brand asset requiring active management and protection. Jackson and Jordan's dispute, and more importantly, their sophisticated resolution, changed that paradigm forever. Their approach treated personal names as strategic business assets to be leveraged, protected, and carefully deployed across multiple markets with nuanced understanding of regional differences in recognition and value. Look at how celebrities approach naming rights today, noted one intellectual property attorney who specializes in entertainment law. Taylor Swift has trademarked phrases from her songs. The Kardashians trademark their children's names before birth. Athletes register their jersey numbers alongside their names. This comprehensive approach to personal brand protection traces directly back to what Jackson and Jordan pioneered in their agreement. The precedent established by their agreement influenced countless other celebrities to take more aggressive approaches to protecting their personal brands. From Taylor Swift's extensive trademark filings to Beyoncé and Jay-Z's protection of their children's names, the lessons of the Jackson-Jordan dispute echo throughout modern celebrity culture. The lawsuit and settlement also created a template for how competitors in the fame economy could find mutually beneficial collaboration rather than destructive conflict. They were early adopters of what we now call competition, noted Elbers. Finding ways to compete in certain arenas while cooperating in others, something that's become essential in today's interconnected entertainment landscape. This cooperative approach extended beyond their personal dealings to influence how their respective industries operated. In sports, the Jordan model of athlete as brand opened doors for generations of players to control and monetize their personal brands. In entertainment, Jackson's sophisticated approach to protecting his name and likeness across multiple categories established new standards for how artists managed their intellectual property. They didn't just settle a lawsuit, observed one sports marketing pioneer. They created an entirely new way of thinking about celebrity as business. Before them, fame was something that happened to you and that others largely profited from. After them, fame became an asset that the famous person themselves could strategically manage and monetize across multiple domains. By the time of Jackson's death in 2009, the origins of their relationship had been largely forgotten or obscured, remembered only by those who had been directly involved in the initial dispute. Jordan attended Jackson's memorial service, sitting quietly among other celebrities, offering no public statement about their long and complicated relationship. According to those close to Jordan, he was deeply affected by Jackson's passing, recognizing not just the loss of a business partner but someone who had shared the rare experience of global iconhood. Michael, Jordan, was very quiet after hearing the news, said one associate. He just kept saying, "Now there's only one Michael again." It was like he lost someone who understood a part of his life that almost no one else could. Only in recent years, as documents related to Jackson's estate have become public and several key figures have been released from decades-old confidentiality agreements, has the full story of their remarkable legal battle and subsequent alliance begun to emerge. Even now, many details remain closely guarded. The exact financial arrangements, the complete terms of the settlement, and transcripts of their private meetings are still protected by active legal agreements. What has become clear, however, is the extraordinary significance of their dispute and partnership in shaping how celebrity operates in the modern era. Today, with the Jordan brand generating over $5 billion annually for Nike and Jackson's name and likeness continuing to earn hundreds of millions for his estate, the impact of their long-ago dispute and surprising resolution reverberates throughout both the sports and entertainment industries. The lawsuit that might have pitted two iconic Michaels against each other instead created a template for celebrity brand cooperation that has influenced how fame itself is monetized and managed. Their shared first name, which nearly drove them into a courtroom battle, ultimately became the foundation for one of the most successful, and secret, business relationships in the history of modern celebrity. As one former Nike executive reflected, "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they had actually gone to court instead of finding common ground. One of them might have won the case, but both would have lost so much more in the process. Instead, they rewrote the rules of the game itself." That summer day in 1985, when a lawsuit arrived at Jordan's door, didn't mark the beginning of a bitter feud as both sides initially feared. Instead, it was the first chapter in an unlikely alliance between two men who shared not just a name, but a unique understanding of the burdens and opportunities of extraordinary fame, and who found a way to turn potential conflict into decades of mutual benefit. In doing so, they didn't just protect their respective fortunes, they fundamentally changed how we understand the business of being famous. The next time you see a celebrity carefully trademarking aspects of their persona or strategically leveraging their personal brand across multiple industries, you're witnessing the long shadow of a legal dispute that never made headlines but quietly revolutionized the meaning of fame itself. On a summer day in 1985, Michael Jackson's attorney knocked on the door of the NBA's brightest star. In his envelope were documents for a lawsuit filed by the King of Pop against basketball's new king. Michael Jordan was frozen in shock. This unexpected legal battle between the world's two most famous Michaels would pit two giants of the sports and entertainment worlds against each other and change the course of branding history. If these kinds of stories catch your attention, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Where are you watching us from right now? Let us know in the comments below. The summer of 1985 was a pivotal moment for both Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan. Jackson was at the absolute zenith of his fame, the Thriller album had shattered all previous sales records, he had recently moonwalked into history at the Motown 25 special, and the Victory Tour with his brothers had just concluded as one of the highest-grossing concert tours in history. His name wasn't just famous, it was a global brand worth untold millions. Michael Jordan, meanwhile, was ascending his own ladder to superstardom. After being drafted third overall by the Chicago Bulls in 1984, he had just completed a sensational rookie season, averaging 28.2 points per game and electrifying fans with his gravity-defying dunks. More significantly, he had just signed an unprecedented deal with Nike to create his own signature shoe line, a partnership that would revolutionize the relationship between athletes and endorsements forever. The contrast in their career stages was striking. At 26, Jackson was already a veteran entertainer with over a decade and a half of fame behind him. He had methodically transformed himself from the precocious lead singer of the Jackson 5 into a solo artist of unprecedented global appeal. Jordan, at 22, was the dazzling newcomer, still proving himself in the NBA but already showing signs of the transcendent talent that would redefine basketball. Yet despite their different trajectories, both men shared remarkable similarities. Both had risen from humble beginnings, Jackson from a working-class family in Gary, Indiana, and Jordan from modest circumstances in Wilmington, North Carolina. Both had displayed prodigious talent from an early age that set them apart from their peers. And both possessed not just extraordinary skill but a magnetic charisma that drew audiences into their respective performances, whether on stage or court. Most significantly, both understood instinctively that their value extended far beyond their primary talents, singing and basketball, into the realm of image, endorsement, and global brand potential. This shared business instinct would ultimately lead to their collision. That's where the trouble began. According to sources close to the situation, it was during a routine trademark monitoring sweep that Jackson's legal team first flagged the potential issue. Nike had filed trademark applications for Air Jordan, with the clear intention of building an entire brand around Michael Jordan's name and likeness. For Jackson's attorneys, this raised immediate red flags. Michael was extremely protective of his name and image, explained John Branca, Jackson's longtime attorney, in a rare 2010 interview about the dispute. He understood the commercial value of his identity better than most artists of that era. When we saw another Michael creating what was clearly going to be a major branded enterprise, we had to evaluate whether that constituted a commercial conflict. Jackson's concern wasn't unfounded. By 1985, he had built a substantial commercial empire beyond his music. He had lucrative endorsement deals with Pepsi, partnerships with major corporations worldwide, and a merchandise line that generated millions in revenue. In many markets, particularly internationally, simply using Michael on products was enough to evoke Jackson specifically, an association he had carefully cultivated. The issue was especially sensitive because Jackson was in the process of diversifying his own business interests. According to several former associates, he had been exploring the possibility of launching a clothing and footwear line that would have directly competed with the products Nike was planning under Jordan's name. These plans, though never publicly announced, were well developed by the time the Air Jordan launch was being prepared. Michael Jackson had mock-ups, prototypes, everything, revealed one former business associate who worked with Jackson during this period. He was looking at high-end fashion meets sportswear, with his name and imagery central to the branding. Then suddenly there's another Michael with a Nike deal that's getting massive attention. It created an immediate conflict with his plans. What followed was a legal confrontation that would remain largely hidden from public view for decades, known only to a tight circle of executives, attorneys, and the two superstars themselves. The morning the legal papers were delivered to Jordan's Chicago apartment marked the beginning of an 18-month saga that would test both men's business acumen, ego, and determination. Jordan, according to those present, was initially more confused than concerned. Michael Jordan just couldn't wrap his head around it at first, recalled David Falk, Jordan's agent at the time. He kept saying, "He's suing me over my own name? Is that even possible?" It seemed absurd to him that someone could claim ownership over a name as common as Michael, even if that someone was Michael Jackson. The legal complaint itself was carefully crafted. Rather than directly challenging Jordan's right to use his birth name, Jackson's attorneys alleged that the marketing and branding of Air Jordan created consumer confusion with Jackson's established commercial identity as Michael or the Michael, particularly in international markets where Jackson had been the dominant Michael in popular culture for years. It was a nuanced argument, explained Howard Weitzman, another attorney who worked with Jackson during this period. We weren't saying Michael Jordan couldn't use his name. We were arguing that the way Nike was positioning him, as simply Michael, in some marketing materials, was trading on the goodwill and recognition that our client had built over a much longer career. The initial legal filings remained sealed, but leaked documents revealed that Jackson's team was seeking both monetary damages, reportedly in the range of $10 million, and, more importantly, restrictions on how Jordan and Nike could market products under the Jordan name. The timing couldn't have been worse for Nike and Jordan. The first Air Jordan shoe had just hit the market in April 1985, generating unprecedented buzz for a basketball sneaker. The black and red design had already provoked controversy when the NBA fined Jordan for violating the league's uniform policy, which Nike masterfully spun into the rebellious, banned marketing campaign. The last thing the nascent brand needed was a legal battle with the world's biggest entertainer. Phil Knight, Nike's founder and CEO, reportedly took the threat very seriously despite his legal team's initial dismissiveness. Phil understood that perception matters as much as legal reality in consumer markets, said a former Nike executive. If the public started associating our Michael with Michael Jackson in a negative way, as if Jordan was somehow stealing Jackson's thunder, it could taint the brand before it even got established. Nike executives were initially dismissive of Jackson's claims. The reaction at headquarters was basically, "Is he serious?" said a former Nike marketing executive who requested anonymity due to still active non-disclosure agreements. There was genuine disbelief that anyone, even someone as famous as Michael Jackson, would think they owned the name Michael. But as Nike's legal team dug deeper into the case, concern began to grow. Jackson's international fame was at its apex, particularly in emerging markets like Japan, China, and parts of Europe where Nike was hoping to expand the Jordan brand. In many of these regions, Michael unquestionably referred to Jackson first, Jordan second, if at all. What started as an annoyance quickly became a serious business concern, the former executive continued. Our research showed that in several key international markets, consumers didn't distinguish between Michael Jackson and just Michael. If marketing materials simply said Michael on them, many consumers outside the US thought of Jackson, not Jordan. The legal teams on both sides began preparing for what promised to be a complex and potentially precedent-setting case. Jackson assembled an all-star team of intellectual property and entertainment lawyers, while Nike brought in their top corporate attorneys along with specialists in sports marketing law. As the legal teams prepared for battle, the two superstars themselves had markedly different reactions to the brewing conflict. Jordan, competitive to his core, reportedly took the lawsuit as a personal affront. According to those in his inner circle, he viewed Jackson's action as an attempt to profit from and control his rising fame. Michael Jordan felt disrespected, said a former Bulls teammate. Here he was, just starting to make a name for himself, and suddenly Michael Jackson was acting like he owned the name Michael. It lit a fire under him. This competitive response was characteristic of Jordan, whose legendary drive was already becoming apparent both on and off the court. For a young athlete still establishing his place in the sports hierarchy, the lawsuit felt like a challenge to his very identity, and Jordan never backed down from a challenge. It became personal for him very quickly, explained a childhood friend of Jordan's who remained in his inner circle during this period. He took it as Jackson saying, "You're not a real Michael yet." And that just made him more determined to become so famous that no one would ever confuse which Michael was which. Jackson, conversely, approached the situation with business-like detachment. Michael Jackson saw this strictly as a commercial matter, not a personal one, said one former Jackson advisor. He actually admired Jordan as an athlete. But he had spent years building his brand, and he wasn't going to let another Michael dilute that, regardless of how talented they were on the basketball court. This pragmatic approach reflected Jackson's growing sophistication as a businessman. Having experienced both exploitation and extraordinary success in the entertainment industry, he had developed a keen understanding of the value of intellectual property. The lawsuit wasn't about ego or competition, it was about protecting assets and future revenue streams. Michael Jackson would say, "This isn't about him, it's about the name," recalled one close associate. "Michael isn't just what people call me, it's what they buy tickets to see, what they purchase products because of. That has value that I've built over years." As the case progressed through preliminary legal maneuvers, both sides began to realize the potential for public relations disaster if the dispute became widely known. A public battle between two beloved black icons, both breaking barriers in their respective fields, could damage both their images and distract from their accomplishments. The racial dimension added another layer of complexity. In 1985, both men were navigating the challenges of being black superstars in industries historically dominated by white power structures. A public feud between them risked playing into harmful stereotypes and diverting attention from their groundbreaking achievements. There was real concern about how the media would frame it, said a former publicist familiar with the situation. Two successful black men fighting each other rather than celebrating each other's success. Neither camp wanted that narrative, especially at a time when both were working to transcend racial barriers in their fields. This mutual concern led to one of the most unusual settlement meetings in entertainment and sports history. In late 1985, approximately 3 months after the initial filing, Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan agreed to meet face-to-face, accompanied only by their respective attorneys and agents, at a private residence in Chicago. Details of this meeting remain scarce, protected by non-disclosure agreements that are still in effect. But according to multiple sources who were briefed on the encounter, what could have been a tense confrontation turned into something entirely unexpected. "They hit it off immediately," revealed one person with knowledge of the meeting. Two young black men who had reached the absolute pinnacle of their fields, both dealing with the pressures of unprecedented fame. There was a mutual respect that transcended the legal dispute. The setting for this historic meeting was a luxury penthouse in downtown Chicago, owned by a wealthy businessman with connections to both the Bulls organization and the music industry. Security was extraordinarily tight, with multiple decoys deployed to ensure that no media caught wind of the summit. Jackson arrived first, coming through the building's private entrance with just 2 security guards and his attorney, described one source familiar with the arrangements. Jordan arrived about 15 minutes later with his agent and Nike's lead counsel. The initial handshake was stiff, but within minutes, they were engaged in animated conversation. The meeting, scheduled for 1 hour, reportedly lasted nearly 4, with much of the time spent not on legal matters but on sharing experiences about fame, commercial partnerships, and the challenges of maintaining creative control in industries that often sought to exploit their talents. Michael, Jackson, was fascinated by Jordan's competitiveness, said a Jackson confidant. And Jordan was surprised by Jackson's business acumen. They were seeing reflections of themselves in each other, despite their different worlds. What emerged from these hours of conversation was a growing recognition on both sides that they shared more common interests than conflicts. Both were navigating the unprecedented territory of modern celebrity at a scale few humans had ever experienced. Both were seeking to maintain control over their image and financial futures in industries designed to separate talent from ownership. And both were keenly aware of how their success as black men carried significance beyond their individual achievements. There was a moment when they started talking about creative control, recalled one participant. Jackson was describing how hard he'd fought to direct his own videos, and Jordan jumped in about his battles with Nike over shoe design. They suddenly realized they were fighting the same fight, just in different arenas. By the end of this marathon meeting, the outlines of a settlement began to take shape, one that would not only resolve the immediate dispute but forge an unexpected alliance between the two megastars. The core of the agreement, finalized in early 1986 but never publicly disclosed until now, included several key provisions. First, Nike and Jordan agreed to certain territorial marketing restrictions. In specific international markets where Jackson's recognition was dominant, the Jordan brand would always use Michael Jordan in full, never just Michael or Jordan alone. Second, Jordan and Nike would consult with Jackson's team before launching any non-athletic merchandise that might overlap with Jackson's existing product lines, particularly in entertainment categories. Third, and most surprisingly, Jackson would receive a small but significant equity stake in the Jordan brand, reportedly 1.5% of the nascent enterprise that would eventually grow into a multi-billion-dollar business. Finally, the two stars agreed to a series of mutual promotional opportunities, including Jordan's appearance at a Jackson concert in Chicago and Jackson attending a Bulls game as Jordan's guest. It was a win-win that nobody outside the negotiating room could have imagined, said the former Nike executive. Instead of a damaging public battle, they created a partnership that benefited both of them enormously over time. The settlement almost fell apart at the last minute over one crucial detail: confidentiality. Jordan's team initially pushed for the ability to disclose the settlement in broad terms, believing it would enhance Jordan's business reputation to be seen as having the endorsement of a global icon like Jackson. Jackson's team, however, insisted on absolute confidentiality, concerned that knowledge of the dispute might tarnish Jackson's image or encourage other celebrities to make similar claims against him. After intense negotiations, the confidentiality provision was solidified, with penalties for disclosure that reportedly exceeded $5 million. This explanation helps clarify why the dispute remained secret for so many years, even as both men became among the most closely watched celebrities in the world. The settlement remained one of the most closely guarded secrets in both sports and entertainment. Both camps recognized that the public narrative of a dispute between them served neither's interests. Instead, they carefully cultivated an image of casual friendship and mutual admiration in their rare public appearances together. The first of these came in July 1988, when Jordan attended Jackson's Bad Tour concert at Madison Square Garden, sitting in a prominent position that cameras couldn't miss. Later that year, Jackson was spotted courtside at a Bulls-Knicks game, drawing massive cheers when shown on the Jumbotron. These carefully orchestrated appearances served to cement the public perception that the two Michaels were friendly contemporaries rather than business rivals who had nearly gone to war over their shared name. Everything was choreographed down to the smallest detail, revealed one former Jackson staff member. Which section Jordan would sit in at the concert, exactly when cameras would find him, the brief backstage meeting that would be accidentally captured by a photographer. Nothing was left to chance. Similarly, Jackson's appearance at the Bulls game was meticulously planned. He arrived during the first timeout of the second quarter, ensuring maximum impact without disrupting the start of the game, and was seated directly across from the television cameras. His security detail was instructed to allow a specific number of fan interactions, creating the image of accessibility while maintaining a carefully managed environment. These weren't just casual outings, explained a former Bulls PR executive. They were strategic brand alignment exercises disguised as friendly gestures. Both sides approved every detail in advance. Behind the scenes, their unexpected alliance proved valuable for both parties in ways neither could have anticipated. For Jackson, his small stake in the Jordan brand became one of the most lucrative investments of his career. As Jordan's star rose throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, the value of that 1.5% equity position grew exponentially. By some estimates, it generated over $20 million for Jackson during his lifetime and continues to provide income to his estate today.